Thanks. I'm Aman Kohli. I work for Citi. We're based in Dublin, as well as a lot of other places. And my own background is from software development, from a product background, and a little bit of consulting, though don't hold that against me. And I started my career in Citi working with the Innovation Lab. And within my unit of Citi, we were the first to bring in REST, or as I learned today, roast. It wasn't as bad as that, and we've been doing a lot of innovation works, and this last year I've been heavily involved with the Citi Mobile Challenge in Europe, which is our deconstructed hackathon, and also working very closely with startups and fintechs around the place. So great conference today as well.
Yeah. A lot of technology here. So my name is Marwan. I work for BNP Paribas. We are based in Paris. And my job is actually to connect startup world to the bank, to the different business lines throughout the group. And actually we started an open innovation program 2 years ago. And we've run the first of its kind hackathon for the group, and we will have the chance to speak about it later. But voila, the idea is to connect the startup and innovative companies to the different business lines among the group.
Hi, so I'm Richard Crook. I work for Royal Bank of Scotland. I've done about 20 years in the investment banking industry. I'm now kind of new to the retail and corporate side, coming into Royal Bank of Scotland. I run a team of some of the best engineers in the industry. We draw them in and we put them on new and fun technologies. So we're spending a lot of our time with the distributed ledger group, which you've seen in the news over the last couple of weeks, and a lot of the work on the blockchain and where that's going to take us, because we think that's probably the next generation for us. We've spent a lot of time thinking about APIs for good reasons, and we'll come into that in a minute. We've got a hackathon out there because they're in vogue, and we think that's a good thing to do. And we're working very closely with the Open Bank project, to get that hackathon up and running to start us. We're on the API journey, but it is for us a start.
Great, thank you. So just as a matter of disclaimer, maybe. So as I'm with the Open Bank project, so we're doing the hackathon with RBS. We did a hackathon with BNP Paribas. We tried to do it with Citi, but it didn't work. So maybe just like first question, I really want to understand if you can share with us more about this open innovation initiatives you had and these hackathons you've been doing. So how does it look? What does it look like, and how does it work? So maybe Richard, you can tell us a bit more about the RBS hackathon.
Yeah, I think if we take it back a little bit, APIs and hackathons are very much in vogue. They're very much top of the hype curve. Actually, what we're seeing is a move from business to business discussion to be an engineer to engineer discussion. More and more, we find our clients coming to us are actually engineers. They're building a bank, they're building a business, and they want to talk to someone in the bank about how to connect. And in actual fact, they can't connect to us when they're having a conversation with someone in the business, because that salesperson doesn't understand the same language. So really, as we move into the idea of rolling out APIs and we roll out hackathons, what we're trying to do is stimulate the engineer-to-engineer conversation between two organizations. And we're seeing that more and more.
Cool. Or one, maybe you want to...
For BNP Paribas hackathon, it was an international experience because it was occurring actually in 5 different cities at the same time, simultaneously, all connected, having access to the same API system. We in the group, in many teams, and actually it's in the culture of our company, we have a high and strong faith into collaborating with the startup. But for us, the API, using Open API was a kind of a way to open the arms to the startup, saying, hey, we are just not willing to work with you, but there's a way we should work better together. And we know that our security system is hard, our core system is highly secured, but there's a way in between that will allow us to speak the same language. So we've collaborated with Open Bank project, and we're very happy. You've done a great job into actually putting something concrete that will give both sides the same tool to work on. And we were surprised that many experts actually internally appreciated the initiative and said, okay, generally speaking, when you speak to legal people or security people in the bank, you just look like an alien when you say, let's open core system to startups. But we had good reactions in terms of openness, actually, and they said actually many of them came to the hackathon and discovered that the Open API is really a tool that will allow the bank testing new products and services and actually think about future services and products for the future.
Aman?
So we approach open innovation through different channels. So we do the hackathon, which we've been doing with the City Mobile Challenge, and we approach that over a regional basis because we're a big bank. We tend to do things at a bigger scale. So we launched the challenge last year in Latin America, then we went on to the US, and as I said earlier this year, we ran it in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and then right now we're kicking off the Asian leg. And the way that works is, we engage directly with the community, we expose APIs, and we ask solutions to be submitted, ideas to be submitted, and then teams are given a considerable amount of time to work on ideas using the APIs. So it's not quite a weekend, but I think it's a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, something like that. So some considered solutions can be developed out of it. On the innovation side as well, what we do is we're very active through our labs network in terms of doing engagement with startups, be it incubation centers, or be it working on blockchain, or we were very active at Consensus this year, and we try to do it so we're talking to as many people as possible and working with as many as possible to get the best results. And it's something the bank is seeing as fundamental to the future, is not just APIs, but collaboration and openness, because everything's changing so much. Like if you look at the last 5 years in consumer banking, how things have changed, the number of people who are not using their banks to do foreign exchange remittances, and they're going to peer-to-peer networks, or the negative example of Wonga, but a lot of people do use Wonga for these sorts of things. And then on the commercial side, you're seeing people use peer-to-peer financing for business sides of things. So it's big changes. And again, Open API, Open Bank API is very good because it gives a basis to do things. And then also, the efforts that BBVA, FIDOR, and AXA Bank France have been doing have been great just to stimulate the market.
Great. Cool. What I really like in this is that the diversity and this sort of I think there is a scale of online to offline. Where I think about it when I summarize the 3 programs you run, I feel City is like more on the online part of it. Like there's lots of things online where we ask people to contribute challenges online. I know they meet at some point, but it's mostly like an online and getting ideas from important regions, like big regions, whereas at the other end of the spectrum, maybe RBS having a 2 days hackathon, a physical offline event where people come together to one location, hack together something using the API, and then the BNP model, which is a little bit in between, where it starts with a hackathon, where it's actually invite only, which is like kind of interesting as a program. So it was there's only startups who were let in, fintech startups. So it's not like sort of open to anyone to come and hack, or students and so on, but really to establish startups. They have a hackathon, a physical event for 2 days, and then there is a 3 months incubation program, right?
Correct.
Afterwards. So I really like this sort of diversity and what we can do just with this piece of puzzles, and then we can mount all these sort of programs. Now, really the question, and I think that's great, diversity is cool and so on, but I think the critical question here, and I actually got this question this morning from a bank contact, what's the impact of this? Like, why should a bank do that? What's like the sort of tangible impact you have seen or you're expecting?
I think one of the big things is we get conferences like this, right? We're now giving people like Stevie things to do during his day, I think that's important, right? Otherwise, it would all be computer games. So internally, what's happening is, if you look at what APIs used to mean in a bank, it used to mean file transfer. Right? That's how we used to interact with the external world. You just send us your settlement files or you send us your order files. We deal with it like that. And that's still a large part of what's happening. And it's progressed to those absolutely terrible web service gateway approaches. If anybody's ever had to integrate with third-party payment gateways in weird Asian countries, no, the countries aren't weird, but the gateways are weird, would know what that's like. Security, don't worry about it. And other such things. So we're progressing from a really cowboy land to now where a systematic approach to APIs is being done, right? And this is mirroring what's happening with computing in general, where we're moving to distributed operating systems, doing things in the cloud, and taking what security we need in a bank and putting it into our kind of programmatic interactions. And I think that's really good. And one of the things we're doing on the consumer side of things is rewiring our internal mechanisms around APIs. So we're going to consume the APIs first, and then they'll be stabilized and they'll be iterated on very quickly. Partners will be looped in, third parties will be looped in, and then these will be exposed, and it'll be treated as a product line, I hope, at some stage. And other parts of the bank have been working like this for 5-6 years, where they have the APIs out there, and they initially started out as these absolutely terrible, incomprehensible pieces of interactions to something that can be reused, and you have these business level abstractions put onto it.
Well, in terms of benefits, I think it brings a permanent belief into openness for this industry that has been historically very closed and secured. I mean, we can be open and secured at the same time. And as Aman said it very well, now it starts being something that we think of systematically. Our industry is very specific, and this is also a way for us to say, if you want to be agile, if you want to be test and learn, this is a good way to do it. So keeping in mind that openness can be through systematically through open APIs.
So I've probably got a different answer to this. We look at APIs. We've been doing them for a long time. We've had an API to give you fixed FX pricing since '99. It's a hideous API. This is some horrible pre-SOAP thing that I really can't stand. But you can sign an NDA with us tomorrow, you can onboard, and you can have that API. Oh, hang on. That doesn't sound like an API. No, it is an API. It is an interface to the bank. You can use it. And we've been rolling those APIs out for many years. It's only recently that the demand has been to make them open, self-registry or self-service, and you can then expose them. And we're now going through that journey of exposing them. And I'll give you a reason, a little bit of a different answer is, two gentlemen in this room, both have attempted to onboard onto RBS's systems, core systems. One of them took the route of engaging with one of our relationship managers and went through a long, difficult conversation and has finally onboarded. And he spoke today at great length about his relationship with RBS and what he thinks of them. And very glad to have him as a client. And that's actually how we onboard people. 6 months takes to get access. All right. One of the other speakers here today, another client of RBS, did it a different way, and he spent best part of a good 3 to 6 months reverse engineering one of our APIs. And again, it's a different way of getting at the same system. Just so you know, I'm trying to do the same thing, but I'm an employee. And I've spent best part of 3 to 6 months trying to break down the barriers, break down the processes, and then actually, even then, actually break down the technology that I can give you some of the examples, but they're hideous bits of protocol, transports that I've never understood or never want to understand. It isn't JSON, put it that way. So give you another example of I actually sit within the bank and I'm trying to consume my own systems. It is easier for me right now to stand outside the bank and try and act as a client coming in. So to that end, sent a mail to Stevie to say, well done. That is a pretty impressive engineering feat that you've done. Whether it's within your terms and conditions as an RBS client, we can have a conversation. I also know Tom of Mondo, and I continue to follow his extensive correspondence with the bank, trying to get onboarded. And well done for having the patience, Tom. I didn't think you had it in you. So again, we are there. We are trying to put our APIs out there. Our APIs are available. You can use them. The issue we do is make it difficult. So there are three things I'm trying to do with our APIs. I am trying to shield you from our technology base so that you can come over a modern transport and protocol. Two, I'm trying to shield you from our own internal processes so that you don't have to go through the same journey that Stevie or Tom had to. And finally, I'm trying to shield you from our people. We've got thousands of them, and you don't know who to talk to. And they don't know what the question is you're asking, and even if you ask it, you're probably asking it to the wrong person. And as engineers and as people who are trying to onboard your systems onto ours, you know exactly what you're trying to do, and you're very used to going and using, because I do it every day, APIs from different institutions, and we're trying to get to that point. And I'm not trying to do it for you, actually. I'm trying to do it so that internally, my own engineers can consume our own back-end systems without being prioritized against the other people, the other systems, and the other processes.
Picking up on that, so what was the most challenging setting this hackathon idea internally?
The hardest thing is Wi-Fi. I might as well admit it. I might as well admit it. Data and desk. It's all I want. Just give me data and desk. It's like, I can give you a desk. No, that doesn't work. I need data. So, yeah, Wi-Fi. Just getting clean Wi-Fi. And it happens everywhere I go. It's not just RBS. RBS is one of the hardest. But I go into places, people promise me Wi-Fi, sit down, my engineers start working, and then we find that ports are shut. You can't do this. You get throttled. And you suddenly can't do what you're trying to do at the desk. So trying to get a dirty Wi-Fi is actually one of the hardest things I do.
Right. Okay, cool. And Marwan, just a question about the BNP program, BNPP program. What was the most surprising thing that came across?
Someone mentioned it, food. No, actually, in hackathons, there was in this hackathon of BNP Paribas, it was 5 different cities, and we tried to do something related to the local city, which means in Rome we've done pizzas, and in Paris we needed to be more innovative, so we've done pizzas. So actually, what was surprising is the alchemy that went between internal experts and people involved in the hackathon from the startups and innovative companies. It was incredibly surprising for us, actually. We didn't really expect it. We were actually, at the beginning kind of worried about this interaction. It's new of a kind in the group, but we were very positively surprised. We've invited some of them. It was actually the weekend, and the bank sometimes do banking hours, banking hours. And some of them voluntarily wanted to come during the weekend. They were supposed to come 2 hours from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Actually, they came at 8 a.m. and they stayed late at 2 a.m. after midnight, sitting at the desk with the startups, working with them, answering their question. And actually, we were having this wrong view of people inside the company, that they will view the startups as a thread or as someone that will not understand what we're speaking of. But we end up with a great alchemy, so we are very positively surprised. And it went actually after the hackathon, as you mentioned, it's a boot camp also occurring now till November. We still have people, experts in contact with these startups from the hackathon, and they all volunteer. And the HR are screaming, saying no, they are working very late, it's forbidden, but we still do it, and we're proud of it. So, yeah, we're happy to have people onboarded.
That's great. Well, that's very interesting. So, how do you see the role of internal teams, like vs external? Is that something for, like, what's their role? Like, is that something for the internal, for the staff as well?
We're finding whenever we're doing these things like that, people are ultimately people, and has everyone been to a hackathon? Who hasn't been to a hackathon? That might be an easier one, right? It's like going to a club with code, right? So,
with pizzas.
with pizzas and beer. If you do it right, there should be beer. And what we find, again, like that, you know, a lot of times when you work in a bank, everyone says no for various different reasons. So you think when you're going to do a hackathon or you're going to do some sort of meetup that it'll just be you and maybe some poor sod you've convinced to come with you. But then you suddenly find out there are 30 people with you. And they're like that. They're staying late. They're working with people. Because ultimately, you know, programmers are sociable people. People who work in banks tend to be programmers. They're sociable people. And you put sociable people with sociable people, you get to work on things. And then on the other side of it, you get feedback like 3-4 months later. That was absolutely great. I'm so glad I did that. And we're finding it is kind of turning into a secondary sort of buzz that people are working on. And they're spending their own time working on it. They're kind of helping out more. Happiness. Yeah. You know, it's just, well, it's not happiness. It's you get to work on something you don't necessarily get to work on daily. So, you know, I think as Richard said, sometimes you'll be working on a system that is really strange. And you're wondering, why are there 50 parameters to this call? And why don't I understand any of them? And then on the other side of it, just to kind of get that part of your brain muscled again, or that muscle working again, you just go and you work on a actual sensible API with someone and you do something interesting. And I think that's really what happens with it as well. And then it's really good when you work with, like for us, when we work with early stage companies or with founders, I'm very happy. Like it's very rare you see a founder who's kind of sad, right? So a happy couple of people come into a room and they say, you know what, we want to integrate with your systems. And we say, okay, it'll take 18 months. They say, it's okay. It's okay. So you go and you start working with them on this. In the end, it doesn't take 18 months. It takes 4 months or 6 months or 12 months or whatever. But and that's the bit that happens, that it comes around. And the other effect that's happening is we're seeing this move to open innovation and APIs coming from all parts of the organization. So it's not just tech. It's coming from marketing, which is really weird. It's coming from business product lines, which is not as weird. And it's coming from senior executives. So it's a bit weird when you have kind of a head of some country somewhere emailing saying, hey, can you explain to me how a hackathon works? And that's when you don't say pizza and beer. You downplay that bit and you talk about the other things. And yeah, getting clean Wi-Fi, by the way, is a pain. So.
Right. Anyone wants to chip in? Internal vs external?
Yeah, we use the hackathon model quite extensively internally. We do that purely because it's a really good way of releasing the developers from their day jobs and their daily processes. So once you put them in a room, give them pizza and beer, they feel released from any of the corporate rules, and that allows them to just try new technologies. So we use it as an education where one may have learned how to use a new technology and allows it to percolate across the rest of the group. We also use it, we do sort of hourly competitions, which just see who's the best. We're a competitive bunch.
Right. Does it work?
Yeah.
Right.
I've not won one yet.
Cool. Let's talk about APIs now. I know we touched upon that, but what do you think is the role of an API into a hackathon or this sort of open innovation program? Is that like something crucial you think about, or is it just like a nice to have thing? Who want to start?
I think it's the other way around. It's relatively simple. I have an API. I'd like people to use it. The hackathon is there as part of a digital campaign to deliver that. It provides early and often feedback from the participants in that hackathon. If it doesn't work over the weekend, you know about it pretty quick. If they're not getting the data or they don't understand the data, you're getting very early feedback and very brutal, honest feedback if it isn't working for them during the hackathon.
So what's then the sort of global vision for APIs for the three banks, for RBS to start with? Is there...
As I say, in terms of an open API, in terms of public registry and self-service, we're at the start of a journey. We have a similar vision to what we're seeing across the industry, and we are working closely with a lot of the vendors to make sure that what we pull out of the bag will be useful to you. But I think the start of the journey with our hackathons is to actually investigate what that API development community looks like and start engaging with them early so we can find out what it is they want and be engaged that way around. Rather than some sort of cathedral design, we'd rather get involved with Starbear.
Okay. Anyone? Yeah.
Just on the API side of it, it's something we find that the API is important, but it's also the runtime environment that supports that. So that whatever the sandbox is, and the test data that you tie into it. So even if you have a really good API, what the runtime values for certain reference data are is just as important. So if your sorting codes or routing IDs or whatever they are don't match what's out there in reality, that can lead into problems when solutions are further developed and brought in. And we're kind of taking the approach that a lot of our customers are global now. They're multi-jurisdictional, they're in different currencies, and our systems need to be like that now as well. And our systems need to follow our customers, they need to enable our customers. It would be absolutely amazing if every bank produced something like a if this then that app, right? That would just be so cool for everything they do, not just consumer banking, not just FX, not just trading, just for everything. And that would just be a wonderful place to get to. And yeah, what was the second part of the question?
What's the vision, city
Yeah.
vision on API?
So it's kind of what I touched on earlier. It's just to re-engineer our systems so we're API first, and to do that because it's API plus runtime environments, right? So it's not just here's your REST model. It's everything else around that. And we're moving to a lot of approaches internally to having more horizontal services for everything, and that'll again make it even easier to be more agile around solutions that are offered.
Where for BNP Paribas, I also join Aman in his statement saying that it's very important, but it's not the only thing that is important. We need to give the mindset that comes with Open API, the culture, and make everybody ready to do it. So we are convinced that it's something very interesting and very important. I would say sometimes crucial, but that's my personal point of view. But for the bank, I want to be honest, it was the first experience, not like RBS that has an old experience with APIs, but it was for us a very good experience. And as Aman also mentioned, it was something that is useful for all kind of business lines, all kind of departments. We're surprised also marketing departments, communication, HR, we're all demanding of having this tool for testing and for releasing much more quickly services, also tools for the bank internally. So we think it's something that will be reused more often, and if we have something available permanently, that would be also good.
Okay, cool. So let's say I work for a bank and I want to do a hackathon. What would you advise me to do? Like how to start? What are the lessons learned that you do? I know that might not be common in the banking, but we've seen that we are in this conference. We can share stuff. So what are the lessons learned really?
Get support, because usually what happens if you're a developer, you're probably not very high up the organization, generally in banks, right? So, but there will be someone who supports you. Today, right? Some banks do have managing director or top tier grades assigned to developers, and hedge funds famously do as well. So, the corporate banks are changing as well. But get support, and never take no as an answer. So, the approach I do, which is career limiting at times, but you go around and, do you want to do this? No. Do you want to do this? No. Do you want to do this? Okay, there. Now there's two of you, right? And just get a little bit of support and figure out what you want to do, because, a hackathon for, a consumer grade company, it means one thing. a hackathon for yourself means something else. So, you know, we've been running internal hackathons over the last few years, but they've been scoped. So we're going to do an internal hackathon for our internal IT systems, which has merit because we have a couple 100,000 people working for us. So we have quite serious internal IT systems. But that just gets that culture going of openness, of thinking about APIs, of seeding it through. So we're seeing our tool sets change. You know, we're mirroring what's happening in industry, that, you know, you do have Git in there. People are doing more and more open radars or open issue tracking. Up until now, everything's behind walls, and now it's getting more and more open with collaboration and sharing, and just driving it through like that. And yeah, just pick a date, go for it, announce it, off you go.
What's challenging to do in a hackathon is doing a different hackathon, or a nice hackathon for those that really participate, not internally. I mean, it's great internally. It's really awesome event. Everybody's involved. We are wearing nice, colorful T-shirts. That's cool. But like for those that really participate, it should be something very interesting. And I would say internally, you should keep being ambitious and creative, because now hackathons are having this bad reputation from the startup and developers' point of view, because some of them just say it's a way for stealing ideas or for just making me work and give me pizza, feeding me with pizza, but it's not enough. Can I go further? So you need probably to rethink the collaboration you suggest after the hackathon. So that was probably for us our challenge. What's after the weekend actually? So. The idea is to come up with something different, creative, not only to do something different, but really to rethink the collaboration you do with the participant during the event.
You want to start small. You want to give yourself plenty of time, and I'd suggest you do them internally first, so you know what you're doing. And by far, the thing that everybody remembers about a hackathon is not what they worked on, because they might remember that. They certainly don't remember anybody else's projects at the end of the weekend, but they do remember how good the attention to detail was, the small logistics, you know, the food, the beer, you know, how the premises were. So if you're going to do it, make sure you focus on those small details.
Great, thank you. Do we have questions in the audience? Okay, so we have one question over there. All right, let me. If you can just introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Jonathan Hayes from Danubi, the Digital Payments Network. If we were envisioning this as concentric circles and the nucleus were a hackathon, what would come in the second and third circle around that? In other words, if I wanted to engage with a bank, with API, but I didn't want to participate in a hackathon because I don't want to lose IP that I've spent 18 months developing, how else can I engage with you guys?
So the hackathon's just there as a presentation. You're right to call it concentric circles. You are welcome to just engage directly, and your issue there is immediately who should I engage with. So the hackathon is there to present to you the individuals you should engage with, and that will get you to the core of a large organisation such as RBS. Where do you start? But the next circle out of that is engage with us, find an individual within that organisation, and they will very quickly sign an NDA with you and move into betaing and developing alongside you, rather than you having to force your way into the bank through a relationship manager.
I just want to add a couple of things about this. As Richard mentioned, the hackathon is one way to engage with the bank, but there are so many others. And it turns to be an event, but more and more banks are having dedicated people, dedicated teams, and dedicated programs to exchange with external actors and invite them to just speak with them. Now you would have, and I guess it's the case for the banks on stage and those also on the audience, you have people to speak with, people that are there. Their job is to listen to you as a startup, as someone that wants to bring something to the bank, and their job is to connect you with the proper people inside the bank. So I think there are many other ways to engage with the bank. And not only the team that organizes the hackathon is the one that is supposed to connect with you, but all the bank is supposed to do so. So all business lines have dedicated people. So, and I'm pretty sure that everybody here can state the same. So there are many other ways to engage with the bank.
And just to echo that, the follow-through is really where a lot of the energy is spent when you're doing a hackathon or any sort of engagement. So, what happens on Monday morning, or metaphorical Monday mornings, where what we've done is we not only have a process, because we're a bank, for winners as they come through, but people assigned to it. So if you're a kind of piece of good data analytics solution, we'll plug you into the right person there. Or if you've done something really cool around consumer spending behavior, we'll plug you in there. But one of the things we've done out of CMC is we take a rapid onboarding approach, where we'll work with the company and we'll do kind of lightweight customer testing, maybe 100 customers, and just iterate through that very quickly so we can get some feedback. And then if it's something we want to continue to work on, from the startup perspective and our perspective, we'll continue. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But if it did work out, it might be a kind of, how do we integrate it, or are you a standalone product or something like that? And there are kind of lots of ways around that. And then, one day there'll be public APIs with zero onboarding, so that'll be the way.
And speaking about payment solutions, I'll be more than happy to speak with you, because I spoke about these people that are meant to connect you with the business lines. That's actually my job. That's me. So I will be more than happy to speak with you later, without pizzas. So you see, it's different.
Great, super. Any other questions? Oh, okay. So I think we'll take 2 questions, and then we'll have to go to the next session. If you can introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello, thank you for your presentation. I'm David Few from Société Générale. Just one question about security. Did you face some difficulties with your information security department?
Is it for the 3 of us? Or?
Yes, for 3 of us, yes.
Well, something key, I think, in our organizations, and it's pretty also the case for you, I guess, is to involve very early people. So even though if they are in security departments or elsewhere, everybody should be aware of what you're doing and preparing, and should add their opinion somehow, because you all the time need a maximum of people in the organization, a maximum of departments to achieve doing something that will onboard later all these people also, because you would not go far without them later. So you better onboard them before. We were very lucky to have people that dedicated some of their time, and they were pretty busy on today, but they were there available for us to discuss with us how to build the API and which partner to do it with, and how to evolve it later if necessary. So I think for what concerns BNP Paribas, it's the key participated into our hackathon that can give you a testimonial of how our food at BNP Paribas was awesome. We had great food, and he came to me and said, the hackathon was great for the food. And I said, oh, okay, can you speak a little bit more about the other things? But he was actually...
So to the point of Richard, which was saying, that's what actually people will remember, right? It's like the experience, the feeling. That's really what people would get out of it. So
One of my best engineers doesn't ask what the problem we're solving. He always asks, what food are we getting? Every time.
all right, cool. Well, thank you. So just maybe a last question. What's next for you guys? What's the next step? When is the next project's going to be launched? And maybe Richard is the...
Yes, we're quite proud to be running a hackathon with Open Bank project. That's what, the 9th to the 11th of October. That's merely getting us a toe in the water. It comes back from our one we did last year in Dublin. We're intending to do a number more over the next year. And as we do that, what we're trying to do is bring along a developer community and find a developer community that wants to partner with us in building out that banking API, and as an extension of our systems to make sure that we build them as you want them, as opposed to what we think you want them.
The next thing is to continue plugging this openness into the core strategy, because we've used hackathons and many other contests to show how great these programs are and how they benefit to the business and to the IT, or how they get us inspired by the agility and flexibility of other actors in the ecosystem. So the next step is to make more, try to be creative and do something else than hackathon, but keep this idea of being open.
As I said earlier, our City Mobile Challenge Asia leg is open now, and it's not just limited to Asian participants. So enrollment's happening now, and it's going to continue. Our engagement with startups is continuing as well, and yeah, it's all great.
Thank you. That was lovely to speak to you guys. Thanks a lot. So, and for the people who raised their hand earlier, never had been to a hackathon, so I guess you can go to Edinburgh, October 9th to the 11th, and you can experience a nice hackathon. So thank you. Thanks very much for sharing some advice, some challenges with us. It was much appreciated. Thank you.